good afternoon and good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. At Aspira, we partner with professionals in all areas of health and wellness to bring you topics that we hope are of interest to you. In fact, at the end of the presentation, we'll even have a survey where we can hope that you'll add in some more topics that will be of interest for you in the future. Today, we are delighted to bring you a health and wellness webinar on strategies to help reduce back pain. Nathalie suggests several ways to improve back health while sitting, standing, and moving. You will also benefit from some exercises to create stability and mobility that help the joints that support your back. To take you through this presentation, as I mentioned, I'm pleased to introduce you to Nathalie. Nathalie blends 25 years of international experience with degrees in psychology and exercise science, as she passionately connects with those looking to improve their physical, mental, and immune health. She is the Vice President of Fitness Industry of Canada, Council of Canada, and CanFit Pro's recipient of the Canadian Presenter of the Year Award. Nathalie delivers joyful movement and insights as a coach, speaker, and a trainer. As we move through the presentation today, please feel free to pop any questions you have into the chat, and we look forward to hearing your questions and comments. Now over to you, Nathalie.
Thank you so much, Natasha. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I hope you are feeling good today. Perhaps you are going through some back discomfort, some challenges as it relates to the health of your back. And so this will be the perfect spot for you to soothe that a little bit, as well as spend a lot of time, as Natasha mentioned, focused on prevention and seeing how we can feel about that. The first thing I will get you to set up as I'm getting set up into the presentation is to see if you have access to a chair, because we will be doing some movement today. You might be sitting in one already. What I will ask is if it's a rolly chair that you put the brakes on it so that you're not moving around when we do add a little bit of movement. So if you're standing, that's okay, as I am. If you're sitting, that's all right. Just have access to that chair, because we will talk about our sitting position. We will experience some stretches and some movement from a seated position to make sure that we can all benefit from what we're talking about today. And by all means, for those of you that are joining us live right now, pop as many questions into the chat as possible so we can customize this for your needs. Please know that any question you have, somebody else has the same question. There's potentially somebody listening to the recording that's like, oh, I wish somebody would have asked that. So we can be there for them and ask as many questions as we want. So thank you so much, everybody. Let's think about back pain. Is it common? Yes, absolutely. And so the reality is that 80% of us will suffer from back pain at some point in our lives. As I mentioned earlier, that might be where you are right now. In your day, there might be, or in your life, there might be an issue that you're dealing with, that you're working through when it comes to back pain. If it's something that'll last longer than 6 weeks, it's categorized as chronic back pain, which doesn't mean it's better or different. It's something that is chronic and usually takes more time, effort, and treatment, as well as readjusting of a few different positions and a few different modalities in order to get rid of it. If it's something that's acute, oftentimes the soothing, anti-inflammatory, etc. Techniques will help when it comes to that. But if it's chronic, then there might be something else that needs to be adjusting. Or if it's acute, but it comes back and then you see somebody or you get a few treatments with an allied health professional and it goes away, and then you're okay for 2-3 months and then it comes back and the same thing happens over and over again. That's an opportunity for us to think about something biomechanically in our posture, in our gait, in the way we sit, stand, move, that may require adjustment in order to prevent that from happening at a later date. There are risk factors related to back pain. Being over 30, everyone, being over 30 is a risk factor. Not a whole lot we can do about that. Lack of exercise and general movement, therefore being sedentary, is definitely a risk factor. Being overweight to the extent that it has an impact on our joints, our gait, etc. Diseases like arthritis, certain cancers can absolutely have an impact on back pain, as well as poor lifting habits. So the way that we pick things up and the mindfulness or lack thereof of our posture, our technique, our fatigue, the repetition that we use, and I'll talk about some of those things that we do sometimes, can absolutely have an impact on back pain. What we know is that the percentage of adults that have back pain increase with age is we're looking at it at about 44% of adults have it from 45, pardon me, to 64, and a little over 45% of them have it over 65 years of age. So that's a lot of people, if not at some point, most of us, as I mentioned before. So you're in the right place. We're going to see if we can use, again, some preventative measures so that we can decrease the likelihood of it happening, decrease the duration when there is an issue, and decrease the intensity of the pain itself. So we're kind of looking at all of those things. Now, I promise there's no quiz at the end of today's presentation, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a visualization of the anatomy of our spine so we can see what it looks like. The reason I do this is so you can see the natural S-curves, because there's two of them, that take place in our backs. There is a perfectly natural curve that goes in towards the belly button in our lumbar spine, in that lumbar low back section of our spine. There is a natural, so that's a bit of a lordosis is what it's called. There is a natural kyphosis, so we're shifting into the other direction, that takes place around our thoracic spine. And there's a second one that goes through towards the front of our neck when we get towards our cervical spine. This is how it's meant to be. So sometimes when we think about straightening our spine, straightening our back, we actually want it to go back to this natural curve. A lot of people in the movement and health and fitness industry will call it neutral spine. This is what we mean when you talk about neutral spine. Pilates instructors in particular, yoga teachers in particular, will use the concept of neutral spine. What I'd like for you to visualize when you think of your spine in that neutral curve, that natural curve, are those two S's. It's not actually straight. It looks like your body is straight, but the spine itself, it's just important for us to know that it's actually curving in that way. That alignment that we're looking at, and I might pull out of this for just a second, I'll come back to it so you guys can see me a little bit more easily. That alignment we're looking at is where we want it to be. And if you would be so inclined to join me standing right now, it would be probably an interesting exercise for you to do to see where you are. If you happen to have a mirror that you can look at, that's even easier. If you feel particularly brave and you want to open up your camera, we can have a look at it together, but let's see what it looks like. I'll bring my camera down a little bit so you guys can see this more easily from my feet. And so what happens as we age? And when I mean age, again, we're talking 30 and over. So we're not necessarily talking 80 and over. Gravity impacts our spine. The second that we really start to reach into adulthood, we tend to feel that gravity more. And the natural curves start to shift. So this one here that comes this way, the head becomes a little bit heavier, the chin tends to come down, and I'm losing the natural S curve in terms of that. And then the kyphosis will be a little bit increased. And then this one tends to over exaggerate in that way. So what happens with this is I'm putting a lot of pressure on my cervical spine because my head is down. I'm putting a lot of over opening, if you like, into the muscles that are around the thoracic spine. So these get loose, these get tight, and this down here gets a ton of pressure in the lower back. And so this is how I carry myself. I am rarely in a neutral spine. I'm rarely in a natural spine. And what I would like to do is lift myself back up. So if you want to exaggerate this position, whether you're seated or standing, you can do it. Exaggerate this position. I'll start with the feet because we're standing. We're going to soften up the knees a little bit, and we're going to start to roll ourselves back up towards the position of a neutral spine. Once we are there, very likely, if I go top down now, the chin is likely pulled in a little bit. Think about having your ears over your shoulders. So if your ears are sticking out in front, we're going to pull. Oh, I got a little pop there. free pop. Your ears are going to be a little bit stacked up when it comes to this. Shoulders are back and down and released. We're going to open up the chest a little bit and have the tips of the shoulders down. We're going to then connect the abdominal gate in a way that helps us contract through the center of our bodies and essentially connect our abdominals. Couple of ways we can do that. I'll share with you my favorite. Thinking about in a 360 way from the front to the side to the back, lifting the ribs a little bit off the hips, essentially separating under the belly button from on top of the belly button. So instead of being, if I just do the bottom part, instead of being here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ribs and lift them up a little bit away from the hips. So the pelvis area is down here, and I've got my ribs a tiny bit separated, as if I'm looking into micromillimeters of length, bringing us up towards the spine. I'll just put myself in spotlight so you guys can, see that more easily. There we go. Hopefully you're able to see that. So again, softening through, lifting up, rolling up, all the way, bringing ourselves here, having the ears over the shoulders, or if I start from the top, bringing the crown of the head up towards the ceiling, ears on top of the shoulders, opening up through chest, and then taking the ribs and in a full circle format, lifting them up a little bit away from the hips. And that very likely takes us to that neutral or natural space in our spine. If you feel like it, let me know in the chat how that felt, if that helped out a little bit, how you're feeling after that, and I will bring ourselves back to our spine. So keeping that visualization of the spine in its neutrality, in those natural S curves, knowing that, which I actually think is really nice to wonder. I think oftentimes we think that there's a lot of squareness. Our bodies are really, really curvy. There are curves in their body from right in the middle, right from our spine. Our bodies are meant to have curves. Curves are natural, curves are neutral. And so this is one place where the curves actually start. Why not think of our entire body in that way for it to be stable? So let's think about the muscles that now surround. Again, I promise there's no quiz for the anatomy and everything else. Let's think about the muscles that support and surround our lower back for it to be two things: stable and have a little bit of mobility. Because we think about balance, we think about strength, we think about stability a lot when it comes to the prevention of injury. But sometimes, actually oftentimes, the injuries come from the lack of mobility. We put ourselves into a position that it's not used to going into, and it responds in a way that is painful. So sometimes it's because we don't have enough strength. Sometimes it's actually because we aren't supple enough that we are putting ourselves in positions of risk when it comes to that. Here again, I shall do a little bit of a demonstration of what I mean by the inner and outer thigh muscles, adductors, abductors, if you do want the quiz. We're going to think about the inner and outer thigh muscles and lifting ourselves up when it comes to that. From the bottoms of our feet, the inner and outer thigh muscles that bring ourselves up actually keep us in that left-right balance very, very well. We think a lot about the front of our thighs. Most of us has very, very strong and dominant muscles in the front, the quadricep muscles. And we think a lot about our abdominals. But I promise you that the consideration of being lifted through the inner and outer thighs actually helps place the pelvis in a safe position and in a position that can withstand what we're asking of our bodies to do. Then we have what we like to call the powerhouse in the back. Please forgive me. I will turn and demonstrate a little bit when it comes to the gluteal muscles that are in the back. Whether you're seated or standing right now, you can absolutely clench in the back and feel those gluteal muscles, your glutes, your bum muscles, contract really strongly, or we can let them go and find a place where they are. We are simply mindful of their strength. This is the powerhouse. And we tend to forget about it because we don't see it as much, but our glutes are actually really impactful in terms of their stability and mobility, their ability to be strong, yet also stretchable. That really has an impact on how our lower back can be. So these are all things we want to consider when we think about the exercises. And then we think about the core. Now, some people will include all of these in the core. For the principle of today, I would consider it as a belt around the body. So we've got our abdominals in the front that are part of our core. We've got the abdominals that wrap ourselves around the side body. They're the ones that do this type of movement and this type of movement. Yes. And then we've got our back muscles that are here, the ones that come lower into the back alongside of the spine, as well as the ones that are in the mid back. All of this can be considered core. The reason I go over this is it's not just about the abdominals, certainly not just about the ones we see in the mirror. In fact, the deepest layers of strength we have in our bodies are the ones that are really most critical, oftentimes, to how our back feels and preventing injuries when it comes to that. Never mind the fact that they're also the ones that support our internal organs. They're the ones you will never see in the mirror. They are not part of a six pack or anything like that. They're the deepest, closest ones we have to the center, the closest ones we have to our spine. So when we think about activities we do, and you've got an image here of somebody in what's called a plank position, and we're just holding that, the muscles that are working here are including all of the ones that we've just listed. This is an example of an exercise that continues to work all of these muscles. Squats, sitting down, coming back up, are an example of exercises that also train all of these movements. Most activities of daily living require them all a little bit. Anytime we are standing rather than sitting, we have an opportunity to mindfully think about the posture, engage front, back, side, bottom, top, middle, and therefore be in a posture that is safer, more conducive to having healthy backs. So I'll take a little second. We're done with the anatomy. I'll take a little second to see if there are any questions. I don't see anything in the chat right now, but considering really that it doesn't need to be a gazillion exercises, just mindful posture, thinking about those S curves already puts us in a place where we are better positioned, quite literally, to have the health of our spine. So for those of you that joined us a little bit after the beginning, I'm going to ask, and I know she's on a chair that's got rolly wheels. If you are in a chair with rolly wheels, please put the brakes on to make sure that you're not moving. And then I will come to my chair and show you a couple of alternatives. And this is a chair that I use to teach my chair yoga class. And it's a perfect example of what we want. So let me come out of here again so you guys can see this a little bit more clearly. If I will sit on this chair with my back supported, you'll see that my feet touch the floor. So when I'm seated down and I teach a chair yoga class, for example, or if I'm going to be on this chair for a very long time, I will probably want to have something under my feet so that I can be supported into the backrest. Alternatively, I can have my feet on the ground and then something in my lower back. This is a yoga block, so it could be a blanket, it could be a cushion, it could be a lot of different things, so that I am in this position. You'll notice, if I remove this just so you can see, me wanting to have some support in the lower back. This is pretty soft in terms of a chair. There's some nice support back there, so I'm able to find this position. This is a wonderful seated position. If I don't have the support in the lower back and I have to round myself in order to be comfortable, then I might want to put a little bit of a cushion there so that my spine finds its curves. I don't want to lose the lordosis. I don't want to exaggerate the kyphosis or lose the kyphosis and then be here. So let's say I'm watching television. Let's say I'm writing at my computer. Let's say I'm on my phone. Let's say I'm reading a book. This is all exacerbating ourselves away from that neutral and natural S curve that we talked about earlier. Does that make sense? So both feet on the ground. This is where everybody that likes to cross legs is going to be like, oh, Nathalie, but that's the reality of it. If you are going to crossing feet is preferable to this. Think about what just happened in my spine. I'll actually turn it this way and pretend you have X-ray vision, if you wish, so you can see and have a look essentially at the side body. You might be able to see where I'm at. So I'm here. If I cross feet, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of a lean over to the side. But from here, if I'm crossing leg over, now I've completely dropped into my hip. This one's lifted and my natural curve that's actually in this direction has now done this, sinking into it. And usually, doing this repeatedly and constantly is something that'll have an impact on the stability of our pelvis, where it sits, and the muscles around our back, because we tend to do one leg way more than the other. The muscles around our back and our spine, lower back in particular, but even in thoracic spine, everything kind of curves to one area. Muscles get tighter, muscles get looser. We start to feel potentially the IT band, which connects with a lot of sciatic pain. These things tends to be exacerbated. The other bit in the presentation, Natasha isn't crossing her legs. If you want to, you can cross your feet. Really, the idea is, if it's all day long, we would want to take a break from it. We would want to put feet back down as often as possible. No one's perfect. Nobody's perfect, but we would ideally have feet, otherwise cross feet, otherwise cross legs as little as possible. The last little bit that was there attached to the seated position is the one related to standing there as often as possible. So we are seated up to 2.5 hours more a day than we were in 2019 for a variety of reasons. And we tend to spend less time standing as we get more sedentary, if that's the lifestyle that's connected to aging. It doesn't have to be, it often is. We want to stand up as frequently as possible, even putting a little bit of an alarm for yourself, or just a visual reminder when you see the clock past 12, to think about standing up for just a few minutes, because the likelihood that you stay in the position you see here on the right with the green check mark, the likelihood that you're staying in that position every minute that you're seated is quite low. We are humans. We stop thinking about it. We read, we get comfortable, we get into habits, we do all of these things. Standing up is an opportunity for us to literally get erect, reset, do something, move around a little bit. And then when we come back down, potentially reconnect with that mindful position we had earlier when it came to our posture. Any questions on the seated posture? So we're starting there, and I'll go ahead and click us to the next one. Standing posture. So the one that has the X on it is the one that I showed you guys a little bit earlier in terms of what it kind of looks like. What we want it to look like is closer to the green. And so we've got we are balanced from our feet all the way to the crown of our head, and everything in between, like I said, is elongated from there. The abdominal girdle is activated. I'll give you one more trick. I did tell you earlier there were 2 tricks. I gave you one earlier about stacking, elongating the ribs away from the hips. I'll share a second one with you now. And then the idea of shifting left to right. So let me once again pull ourselves out of this so you can see me a little bit more easily. That's a lovely way to do it. If you are inclined to stand with me now, thinking about shifting left and right, forward and back, over and over. And then we're going to place the feet under the hips. I say this and it's a stereotype, but women in particular will stand like this when we say we're hip width apart. When we say hip width apart, we mean the bones of our hips. And this is where the bones of our hips play. So we've got the feet under the bones of our hips. Our knees are soft. We are buoyant and bouncy rather than being locked back there. Yes, so we've got a soft knee that's comfortable. We're gonna breathe a little bit and bring ourselves into an inhale that comes out from a 360 view into a barrel, and then exhale into a cylinder. Inhale, big 360. Exhale, bring it back to a cylinder. Let's do that a couple more times. So inhale, wide, wide, wide barrel, all the way around, front of your belly button, on each side rib, and in your lower back, which we tend to forget a lot. And then exhale, back to center cylinder. One more time. And back to cylinder. Keep the cylinder at an intensity or a place where you can still breathe. So you're not like clenching everything in terms of cylinder. You can still breathe, you can still be there, you can hold it. You are quite simply aware of that girdle, of that, abdominal belt that goes around the center of our bodies. So see if you can hold it for just a few more breaths. You've got the cylinder at a place where you can still breathe. You're not completely relaxed. You're not opened in a barrel. You've got a cylinder. You are aware. Chances are you're a little bit lifted higher because you are braced. So if I would go and tickle you, you'd be like, "Ooh," as opposed to, "Oh," right? You'd be like, "Yeah, you tickle. I'm all right. I'm braced a tiny bit." That's the space where we want to be standing, where we are solid, where we are strong. You'll actually hear about it. A great way to think about it is in yoga. It's actually called mountain pose. If I would be standing like this, I am a mountain, because if somebody tries to come push on me, right, left, everything else, I'm not really going anywhere. I'm not flimsy. I am in my mountain pose, strong, owning my space. So your standing position, if that helps visualize it, think about your mountain pose. You are in your mountain. That is where you are. Knees are soft. The abdominal girdle is stimulated. The shoulders are relaxed and the crown of head is up towards the ceiling. This is our standing position. This is a standing position as opposed to, so sure, we saw that one there, or this, or this. Like that. Those are the standing positions. The first one that I showed being one that's actually really healthy. All right. Feel free to pop into the chat with any questions related to the standing position, because now we're going to look into even more movement as it relates to our walking posture. So let's talk about walking. We would want to have, as reasonably as possible, appropriate footwear. There's two schools of thought when it comes to footwear. Some of them will say everything we do with footwear is overcompensating to the extent that our bodies, specifically our feet, our ankles, and the muscles that come up from there, forget how to hold us up, and we are using them as crutches. So sure, but that said, that's who we've been most of our lives, if not all of our lives. And so going to 100% barefoot all the time, the body would struggle with that just a little bit. Is it a good idea to be barefoot from time to time and be really mindful of the position of our feet? Yes. A perfect place to do it is in the sand. So if anybody's going to have feet in the sand in the next little while, by all means, see if you can play with your feet barefoot in the sand, and find those natural arches that are meant to be there. A lot of us, especially those of us that tend to have a little bit flatter arches, they don't tend to pull back up in and of themselves. We need to work with that. And that's where the footwear can come in. So usually footwear will have, for walking, we'll have some arch support. When it comes to that, we'll have some ankle support. And most walking shoes are designed with even cushioning for the extent of our gait from heel to toe, versus, for example, running shoes, the cushioning and the ability to propel you is situated at a different place. So if you're looking for a great walking shoe, a running shoe on sale, probably not your best bet, no matter how cute it is. You really want to be able to find a walking shoe because they're designed, again, they've got lateral support right and left, and they've got cushioning from heel to toe, because most of us walk from heel to toe, but we don't run from heel to toe. It's a different type of mechanism, and therefore the shoes are designed a little bit differently there. We want to walk frequently and regularly. Walking is as close as we can get to the fountain of youth. Walking is phenomenal. Walking is accessible to most of us, and usually free, aside from having the proper footwear. Something that we can use even with a cane or other types of support when it comes to walking mechanisms, walking sticks, etc. But it is something that we can do on our own. It's something that we can do with a friend. It's something we can do with a group, with our loved ones, with our families, with the right gear, something we could do year round or indoors in the wintertime if the landscape that we're in isn't quite as safe on those particularly wet over ice kind of days, and we want to be safer. Absolutely something we can do indoors. So we want to walk as frequently and regularly as possible, which means 10 minutes every day is probably better than 60 minutes once a week. That's how beneficial walking is, that it's kind of like the best vitamin ever invented. It just comes from your feet. Walking is phenomenal. So we do want to have a little bit of a warm up and a little bit of a cool down when we walk, which your body will very likely do on its own, just because we've been walking our entire lives. Human beings know how to walk. At the beginning, you'll be a little bit of a slower pace, adapting to the environment, especially if it's colder or warmer outside. Your feet start going, your muscles start to warm up, your joints get lubricated, your heart rate comes up a little bit. And then we find a pace that we like, we do that. And then at the end, we will slow down a little bit, as opposed to, charge into our homes at the end of the day. So we'll usually have a little bit of a gradual warm up and a gradual cool down. And in the middle, those 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes of it being at a pace where we feel our heart rates are going up. We can still talk. Maybe we can't sing if we're challenging ourselves at our level of intensity for that, but also those are things that you can work with. So the intensity, less important, the duration and the distance, less important, frequency and consistency, most important. And walking is actually oftentimes prescribed by physicians for back pain, because motion is lotion. That's an easy one for you guys. I love alliterations also, but motion is lotion. And so if we're struggling with back pain, chances are, if you've ever had low back pain, especially low back pain, that walking and mobility was actually the most comfortable thing for you to do. Standing still, if your low back is really bad, not comfortable. Sitting down, often not comfortable. Lying down, sometimes downright, painful, but moving a little bit helps, and it lubricates those joints, and it does really create that lotion for your body to keep healing. So think of it that way, that a lot of doctors specializing in low back pain will suggest walking as part of healing when somebody struggles with low back pain. That's how amazing it is. If we are in a position right now, or in a position where we are struggling with back pain, especially low back pain, we can accelerate by using the arm cadence as a trick. So again, I'll try and show it to you this way. I might do this so you guys can see. Popping in and out so you can see as best as possible. The slower we walk, especially if it's really off our natural gait, the more we tend to lean back. And if we're leaning back, because we're walking so slow that we start to, and I mean, I'm exaggerating now, but you know what I mean, that I'm starting to lean back a little bit, I'm actually compressing my lower spine. What I want to do is create this forward momentum, and that can happen from acceleration. When you go fast, the top of your body tends to go first, and that actually relieves the lower back. Changing our gait for acceleration, especially if we're struggling, we're at a time where there's pain, feels really strange. It's much more accessible to change the cadence of the arms. So if you want to think about where your posture is when you're walking that way, and I'll do it like as if I'm standing still, our cadence of arms and feet match. That's how our bodies are created from the skeleton and biomechanically. If I go faster in my arms, my feet will automatically go faster, and I'll accelerate a little bit, come forward a tiny bit, engage the abdominals to support the upper body, take a little bit of pressure off the lower back. So I know it might sound counterintuitive, but sometimes the recommendation, if we're at a time where we have low back pain, is actually to accelerate, to take some of the pressure off the lower back. And the best way to accelerate sometimes is to accelerate the arms. You can just remember me doing this, is to accelerate the cadence of the arms to help get ourselves there. And walking sticks can be an option for walking posture if that's something that's there, especially in the wintertime. If you're feeling like the risk of falling is an issue, you're gonna be like this and super, super tense. Having those walking sticks, and then whatever is necessary for footwear, including the cleats underneath, whether they are part of your boots or whether they're clip-on or anything else, all of those things can help us have a relaxed and sustained walking posture. Make sense? How are we doing? We're doing good. Again, if you've got any questions for sitting, standing, or walking, hopefully I've sold you well on walking, then let me know. And then our last one is lifting. So you've got here, and I think I'll keep it on, a perfect demonstration of lifting posture. I'll put this down so you can see me well though. And let's say this is what I'm looking to pick up. So it weighs nothing, so you guys don't have to worry about me. I'm not putting myself in a position to get hurt. What this person is doing, I'm going to show you what not to do. This is oftentimes how we lift. Yes, this is what we mean when we say lift with your back. This is when people lift with our backs. And that's essentially putting the spine completely out of its optimal neutral position, creating over arches of those S's, versus, I'm going to put this back down, sinking down as much as we can into the legs and placing it. This is where you want the weight to be. If what you're grabbing is so low to the ground that it's not accessible to you without that complete bend over, then have something nearby to help sustain it so I can still use my legs. This is better than this. So we can have something nearby, be it a chair or anything else, and still scoot down and press up with our legs. So this is something we can practice. Doing this repeatedly is a really nice workout, really nice exercises that we can do. We're bending our knees, we're activating the abdominal girdle to support the lower back. We are using leg strength. And then the other bit that I really, really want to mention, this is where most injuries take place, is when there is rotation and extension at the same time. So if I move this out of the way, I will show you what that means. I'm picking up something, again, pretend this is heavy. I'm picking up something, and I'll do it this way, and I lift and turn at the same time. The safest way to move, especially if it's something that we're doing repeatedly and is untrained, or something you haven't lifted heavy in a really long time, is to lift first, then rotate. So I would repeat that movement by coming down, lifting first and then rotating. If I lift and I rotate at the same time, I'm increasing my risk of injury. I want to separate those two things out. Think about groceries. Think about holiday presents that you're buying. Think about, anything related to snow removal. Certainly think about shoveling. I mean, chiropractors, physiotherapists, everybody shove the first big snow for them. The first big snow that they're not going to shovel, they need to clear their calendars. And that's because people lift and rotate repeatedly, having not done it for months and months and months, trying to do it as quickly as possible. So picking up way more load than they should. And usually very much on the same side versus alternating between left and right, taking a little break, and then going at it again. I am a person that likes to get chores over and done with, but if you'd see me do the driveway, because again, it's heavy snow, no matter what we've done, it's something we tend to do one time a year in our country. If you'd see me doing it, you will see that I will lift, and then once I'm up, I will rotate. I'll take a little break. I'll do the other side. I'll stand. I'll look around. It's not my normal personality of getting chores done. Chores that I would do indoors that don't have that added weight and added pressure. I'm like, put the music on. Let's go. Let's get it over with. Why is anybody taking a break? That's not how I shovel, because I am aware of the risk of it. And I can tell the second it gets a little twingy when my back or my muscles get a little bit tired. All right, sitting, standing, walking, lifting. We've covered a lot of the bases when it comes to the different things that are there. So now that we've covered all of that, you guys get a treat. Yay. You can start on your chair for this. I'm going to come meet you. So you can start on your chair for this. I'll show you some seated, standing, and I'll show you some to the floor also. You don't have to do the floor ones, but you can watch me get down and get back up, which I'll show you how I get down and I get back up. I'll grab the mat too and see what makes sense. The first one, flat round back. In yoga, we call this cow stretch, cat stretch. We can start from the seated position. It's doable from every position. I will not fly on a plane or get in any like long distance driving to go see the family, everything else, without doing this fairly often. So we're going to open up our chest and then round our back. Inhaling because it feels even better as we open up our chest. Exhaling as we round back in. Inhaling, open, exhaling, round back in. I'll show you what it looks like from this side, right? Inhaling up and rounding back in. I'll show you what it looks like when we're standing. We can either have hands on a chair and rounding back and opening up, or we can have hands on thighs, opening up and rounding our backs. It's also doable on the floor, which I'll get to later. You guys remind me if I forget to do it. So let's all come up if you're not standing already. Bouncing buoyancy, really nice. We're just gonna helicopter. So let the arms kind of swing around you, finding some mobility now through the center of our bodies. And as I get comfortable, let the heel come up. And you can actually let your hands kind of gently give you a little bit of a tap, a little bit of a smack as you come around, but helicopter around and let the body rotate all the way through. If you're anything like me, hips, knees, everything's sounding like Rice Krispies right now, that's okay. We're lubricating, we're doing it gently, we're doing it mindfully, but this is something that probably feels good, yes? I heard you guys all say yes. Oui, Nathalie, wonderful. All right, we're gonna make it a bit smaller and come on back. Coming through his feet exactly where they are. We're gonna bring, if you wanna look this for balance, Always a good idea to do this with a chair next to us. So we can have a chair next to us. Take the leg that's furthest away from the chair and step it back a little bit. So I'm feeling balance. It can be just behind the other one, or it can be crossed behind, whatever makes sense for your body today. And we're going to take that same arm and reach it towards the chair. So this is lateral flexion. Another position that can be created thanks to our obliques, finding extra millimeters of space between our ankle and our hip across that sciatic nerve, our hip and our waist and our armpit and our fingertips. So we're making essentially like a banana or a boomerang shape with the body. Beautiful. Coming back down. Same thing to the other side. Take your time. Cross the foot just a little bit closer or behind or fully cross behind, whatever makes more sense for you. We've got the hand there to support us. Let's reach the arm up. Shoulder can be nice and relaxed. And we can go make that banana shake. Shake. Wait a minute. It's a different presentation. Another webinar. Natasha will tell you about it. So we can press the hip over and find some space there. I'm hoping, I feel like I'm hearing everybody go like, ah, oh. Yes? I'm imagining it from coast to coast, hearing those oohs and ahs as we do this. Beautiful, bringing it there. I'm gonna do windshield wipers next because we can do it seated or we can do it standing. So let's come seated in windshield wiper. I'm gonna show you 3 versions of this. From here, a little bit away from the backrest, hands on the side. We're just gonna allow the knees to come down as if they are windshield wipers. Yeah, you guys keep doing that one. I'll come to the floor and show you that version. Did I hit? Show you that version. I'll actually, because I'm going to be down on the floor, put ourselves out of this. Are you still windshield wiping? Yeah, going side to side. So I'm going to come do it here. 2 versions of it. Seated on the floor, hands back side to side, or my personal favorite, all the way down. And if you are down with me, I will share with you how to come back up as promised earlier. Feet wide, and the knees will come down side to side. This feels so good, I might finish the webinar here. Kidding. I'm gonna come up. But this could be something that we do before we go to bed at night with some nice deep breathing. This could be something we do first thing in the morning to notice really gently how our lower back feels before we ask it to get up and face the day. So it could be something really nice that we do. Giving ourselves some space again along the side body. And then our last one is the knees to chest one. So you've probably done this. We're essentially going to make a ball. Again, last thing you do at night or first thing you do in the morning, grabbing onto the backs of our thighs and bringing our knees into our chest, either with the head rested down if that feels good, or we can round up if that feels good, wherever it makes the most sense. And now I will slowly bring myself back up, show you a way of getting back up if you were down on the floor, if that happens to be something. So from here, we're going to bring both feet to one side, roll onto the side, use the strength of our arms and our abdominals to press our way up to our hips. From here, my friends, we're going to come into all fours. All fours is a great place to be to come up safely. One leg comes forward, and then I can have hand on thigh, hand on floor, or hand on chair, or hand on wall. And I'm going to press in legs, abdominals, and the arms. Everything helps me as I come back up. Sometimes it's more graceful, sometimes not so much. But we are taking our time. Oops, sorry, I got a little bit fuzzy there. We are taking our time when we come up from those positions. All right, so that was your treat. Hopefully you enjoyed the stretches that we did together. So round back, flat back, helicopter. Remember that one? Lateral flexion on the side, knees into our chest, and the windshield wipers, which is absolutely my personal favorite. Like I said, one that we can do when we're seated if we want. And I will see if there are any questions before I say au revoir and hand it over to Natasha.
Great. Thank you so much, Natalie. I'm just realizing that I am a chronic leg crosser, and I'm crossing them again, and you are very right. It is always the same leg. So, if, in the least, I will try and practice going opposite ways and crossing my feet rather than my legs. So
From time to time.
it's
Yeah, from time to time.
very, very much a habit. So thank you for providing that advice. I find it very helpful. I don't see any other questions. I might just give it another moment in case anyone here has any questions about how they too can have better back health. Otherwise, I do think they probably found the exercises very enlightening and ways that they can feel better, because I know I did. I may not have had my camera on to show you all my lovely movements, but I was there doing them.
I have a vivid imagination. I saw you guys all do them. I believe
And you
in
heard the size, you knew.
you. Yeah. Yes.
Great. Well, I will leave it at that then. At the end, when you close off the meeting, as I mentioned, there will be a little survey, so go ahead and complete that. Let us know how you felt about the session today. Otherwise, I wish everyone a great day and afternoon, and we'll see you again next month.